Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us on a seminar to go over the new rules from the FCC regarding lead generation, combating illegal text messages. I have some great guests. Obviously, from Benepath, we have a whole team here that's put this together so that we can get you really good information. And from Bobberdew, we have Scott Hetman and Brad Seiler, who have really worked hard to prepare for the FCC changes and have some creative solutions for what everyone is going to be facing going forward. We take it to the slides. So a little bit of background on the FCC rule change for combating illegal text messages, and they went way beyond that, is they first want to block all texts from a number when a commission notifies carriers. So they're looking to combat the offshore text messaging. And I think we have all seen it on our phones where we get messages for this offer, that offer, but they're not going to stop Joe Biden and everyone else from texting us saying, hey, we need money. So that is going to continue. But we are definitely going to see a change in the offshore spamming of our cell phones. The DNC is now going to specifically apply to text messages. I think a lot of us have included that historically, and we've been relying on TCPA language to allow us to do text messaging, but now it's specifically excluded. And email to text will require an opt-in. So using email to get into text messages, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but every carrier out there, if I type your phone number at vtel.net, it'll go to your Verizon cell phone. And then finally, and what I think most everyone here is looking to learn more about, is they're closing what they call the lead generator loophole. So non-automated telephone dialing systems will theoretically not be affected by this. And I welcome questions. You can add your questions to the chat. We'll be looking at them as we go through the process. But if you don't use an ATDS, which there is a ruling between Facebook and DeGuid several years ago, where they specified what was a automated telephone dialing system under the TCPA. And it was a major ruling for the industry and against the plaintiffs' attorneys. Regardless, with these new rules, I would be talking to your own counsel to see if you want to test this. It's not exactly clear that plaintiffs' counsels aren't going to sue. And the biggest fear that we hear from attorneys is that they are going to sue, and you're going to have to defend yourself that you didn't use an ATDS. The specific areas that they want to address is they want to stop unwanted texts and calls. This is something I think we've heard from every consumer. We hear it from agents. You know, these consumers' phones are blowing up, and it is a real problem. There are 11 senators right now that want to make it a crime, a felony offense, if this continues. So legislation is coming, even if these rule changes don't go into effect. They're looking to reduce the scams from texting schemes. You know, people are getting this data and they are getting all sorts of unwanted offers. They're getting scam offers, and it's becoming a serious problem for consumers. Some of the estimates are in the billions where consumers are losing money. They want to reduce malware attacks because people are using texts to insert links into people's phones. They're clicking on these links and they're ending up in phishing scams. And then the abusive calling, which I had mentioned a second ago. Somebody puts their name into ABC website, and before they know it, they've got their phone blowing up 50, 60 phone calls in the first couple of hours. So the part that matters, the report specifically says, we close the lead generator loophole by requiring that texters and callers get written consumer consent one seller at a time. So shared lead generators have to change their model. There's no more, click this link to see the list of companies. And I'm not sure how many people on this call have gone and actually looked at the TCPA list from any one of the carriers out there. You can go and look at Pick Health Insurance, which is Quote Wizard. You can go look at Compare Health Quotes, which is one of our sites. There's a bunch of sites out there. And if you get to the last step of the form and you click on that link, you will see a huge list of companies that they can send that lead to. Now it's going to have to be very specific, and on that page where they're giving consent, who they are connecting the person to. If it's going to be more than one, it can't be just a printed list of companies that they will be connected to. The consumer is going to have to willfully check the boxes of the companies that they are going to connect to. If it's a one-to-one connection, you can just put the one company in, is what it looks like right now. So what this is going to mean to the industry, and it's a lot. This will mean changes or the end to a lot of practices. So outbound calling by the lead providers to generate phone calls. Unless they get that checkbox, lead providers are not going to be able to send the lead to you and to call them themselves. Selling of insurance by a lead provider, again, they need that consent. Make that phone call out to the agent, and then anything that's post the initial transaction of the age lead sales. Another thing that we don't have here is that the websites need to be logically and topically connected to what the consumer is looking for. So if you go to a site for, let's say, payroll, and then you start getting calls for group health insurance, that's going to be a problem. But if it's group health insurance, people are pretty sure that you can talk about any kind of group insurance to that endpoint consumer. Again, these are things that you're going to need to, work out, but cross-selling is going to be allowed as long as when you get connected to that consumer and they're looking for health insurance, when you call, that you're selling them health insurance or some other product. Could be solar, it could be, I'm not sure everybody who's on this call, but we've got people from a lot of different industries potentially here. So the impact on agents, again, a lot. It's going to impact buying shared leads. So if, I think the brands are going to have an advantage here, especially on the insurance side. People are going to be more likely to click on United Healthcare than Joe Smith as an agent. So the agents to get leads are probably going to have to look for exclusive lead buys where they can be promoted versus being an option on a multi-pick list. Ping post is going to be affected. Bob Redue's got some great solutions to that. And, but if you don't have a super fast system on your end of the transaction, the ability to take seconds to get back on the ping is not going to work. Consumers have a tendency to leave if a form doesn't populate quickly. And so somebody's going through a multiple step form. On that last step of the form in the ping post environment, you have to have instantaneous nanosecond, millisecond response for that to work. If you can work inside of their platform, it's going to be a solution that exists. And that's why I really wanted them to be on this call to talk about that. And buying unused leads from other agencies. Right now, a lot of agencies that do their own lead gen What they'll do is if they can't use that lead a few minutes later, they'll send it off to somebody else, and that's no longer going to be allowed. And then finally, the accept reject is something that is also going to be problematic if you don't have a system that's designed to do it instantaneously. And especially after you've been there and you can't see the data. Once you've been connected with that person, you're probably going to have to take that lead. And Barbadu has some solutions for these problems, and they've been working on it for some time. I'm going to hand it off to Scott now so he can talk about what they are bringing to the table to deal specifically with these issues.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Colin. So as you mentioned, since the start, or back about a year ago when it was announced, Barbadu started working on the concept of dynamic consent. And so the idea here is, just as Colin mentioned, if you are a lead generator, you can dynamically display the potential matching partners off of the ping stage, and then allow the consumer to select multiple or as many of those companies as you want. So from the generator side, the options and decisions will rely around what the best path is for that consumer based off of the potential matches. So in many ways, as long as that's displayed to the consumer, a lot of the processes can stay the same. It's just a technical matter of getting that data passed. And so there will be more transparency between buyers and sellers, so that company information can be returned, deduped, so that the generator doesn't display the same agency 3 times in a row. And then also determine whether or not it is an exclusive match, so the company can just be dynamically inserted into the terms, or whether multiple matches will be returned to the consumer to allow them to select. So speaking to some of the things that Cleland had mentioned, when you're looking at some of the smaller agents competing against bigger brand, the concept of returning more information back about that company can be expanded. So you can return taglines, value propositions, along with that company to try and help them differentiate to the consumer. And then, when you're looking at like the agency unused lead aspect, in many cases, as Cleland mentioned, you can't work the lead because you had to consent and then sell that lead after the fact. But if you can ping your real-time demand, if it is not a lead that you want at that point in time, you can then ping that to other potential buyers so that you're returning that end company back to the consumer. So there are still opportunities to, offset the marketing costs of leads that you cannot work. As far as reprocess leads and aged leads, I think that Barbadu is certainly in agreement with Cleland in that practice, will certainly decrease. I'm not aware of many people that buy aged leads that don't use some form of auto dialer or text. And so while conceivably you may be able to return that aged buyer back in the response, in practice, I don't think it really makes sense. If a consumer is going to select to a company, I would think you'd want that information as fast as you can. And so I think that will increase the cost and prices of real-time leads, with supply having some drop off in a 2-step form or a multiple-step form. But the reduction in supply of aged may help to offset that by keeping the demand high. When we're talking about the ping, so Cleland mentioned that the ping has to be processed fast because that lead generator is not going to want to waste that valuable time of that consumer just sitting there staring at some interstitial. So Barbadu have the ability to process that ping in the background so you can progress that consumer through through multiple steps so that when they get to that final page where they have to display the matching company's TCPA text on the same page that the phone number is, it's already processed and presented there. When we're talking about post rejects, I think this is something that is very vertical specific, but when we talk about insurance, that is obviously something that is pretty prevalent. Post rejects are typically done for two reasons. One is that they don't pass a lead scoring. With multiple steps and more actions, hopefully that cuts down on some of the that bad traffic. But then the other big reason is duplicates. And so the reason that some people have very high duplicate rates is because it's a dedupe against a very large list of leads that may go back. I know some clients may go back all time, include any data, age, co-reg leads, all that were bought. And that is going to affect that generation or that generator's opportunities. So either, no post rejects, there's the concept of collecting email of the consumer so that can be hashed and sent along with the ping so that you are only bidding on leads that are not currently in your database or suppression list. And then, a much shorter dedupe period because once this goes into effect, everybody that you have sitting in there from an age leads that you don't have one-to-one consent, you can't really dial anyway. So why not get that fresh consent? So I have a working example of just using the Boberty form builder of dynamic consent, kind of showing those multiple clients that can be displayed on the form. So if that works for you, Cleland, I'd share my screen. Or actually, Emily, thank you. You could just show there. So we are on a page here where the consumer can present some information. As I mentioned, if you want to hash to reduce the possibility of post rejects because of duplicate, you can collect email, hash that, and send that along with the ping. And so then on that second page, the form with their information, the phone number, there can be one set of terms for all of the matching partners below. Actually, I apologize. Would you select roofing or would you go back in the previous step and select roofing or windows, please?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I think you need to go
right corner there.
There we go. Roofing. And then just scroll down.
Yeah,
I think that's
this
what
one,
we're
yeah, exactly. So down here, we'll show multiple matches presented to the consumer. So roofer, Roofington, and then the consumer can select both. One, how many companies that can be displayed here, I think is going to be something that generators look to optimize, whether that's just the best exclusive. A lot of that will be determined over time as they do A/B testing, but this is just another metric and something I think they're very comfortable doing. When you look at roofer Roofington, you can see there's additional information that could be displayed back to the consumer. This can be simple text or a full HTML logo as well, and then also a phone number and a link. So that phone number can then be tracked and sold. So if the consumer says, oh, I like roofer Roofington, I'm just going to call this number, that can then be sold as a call coming into the system. Or even if you click on their website, that could then be charged to this company as a click out to their website or landing page themselves. So this response does give multiple monetization opportunities for the for the generator. It gives more options for the consumer, and then that end buyer has that one-to-one consent to reach out.
So following up on what Scott said, I mean, this is one of our forms, and what's going to end up happening for us, because we focus on exclusive leads and one-to-one. So we're already there on the one-to-one side. We're going to move our lead assignment from right now, it gets assigned when they hit the Get Quotes button, to this page right here. And instead of seeing click here for a full set of who we could have made that one-to-one connection with, you're going to end up seeing your name. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you're going to need to work with in talking to any lead provider that exists. And you're going to need to think about how you can get on a list like Scott's and, determine whether or not the volume of leads that you get is going to make up for the cost of getting involved with a solution like that. And they've got a really good solution. We've been partners for several years now, and they're just a great company to work with. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, Scott. With that, we can go to the next slide. Benepath, when you come with us, we show your name, agency name, and TCPA in real time. With the marketing platform and lead distribution platform, all in the same proprietary system for us. So what we do now, when we work with Scott, is on the Ping Post side, and we do our own owned and operated sites, have fraud detection, and work really hard to get the best possible quality leads to our customers across the country. The owned and operated, that brings up another issue. A lot of the companies that are in the lead space, they're what we call aggregators, and they are going to have a significant challenge going forward, because not operating your own site, they're going to have a heck of a time getting a lead and making sure that the TCPA is done in a way that Scott just showed you, or that you could see on our form. So you're really going to be forced to work with owned and operated companies. With that, I'm going to open up to questions. I guess they just put it into the chat. Mm-hmm. So if anyone has any questions, just chat away, and we'll take your questions as they come.
Yeah, Clellan, this is Brad. I had one more comment in there about the ruling, is that the new requirement that the sellers, who are the lead buyers in the FCC's term, are going to be responsible for proving the consent, which is a little bit of a shift, because now it's fairly common for the lead generator to have the Jernaya account or the trusted form account, but moving forward, the actual seller, the lead buyer, is going to be the person that's going to be required to do that. So that's definitely something. If you're buying leads, you should put that on your to-do list to get signed up with a active prospect or Jernaya account, and then be able to work with a system like Bobberdo or something else where you can claim those certificates in real time and validate that your company name was in fact on that consent form.
Good day, Jess. How does this new ruling affect call centers, agents buying general demographic data for calling, such as auto, homeowner? I mean, that's a great question. It's going to have a major impact. Most of the call centers that are out there, you're buying inexpensive data, you're buying age data, you're buying shared leads that are shared 6 to 8 times, so you can get that price point down as far as possible. The example that Scott demonstrated showed you that they're going to have to click on multiple agencies. In the insurance space, I think that your auto carriers, the Progressives, the State Farms, the Allstates, are going to have a clear advantage. And there's a real reason in that space to get multiple quotes. In the life and health space, where the health agents can represent pretty much all the carriers available in the marketplace, I think a local agency or call center out of Florida or Texas is going to be challenge to be able to get that check is saying from the consumer on that last page when they're up against, let's say, United Healthcare and Cigna and Blue Cross. And then they're going to say, you know, family health plans of Florida or family health plans of Texas or whatever the case may be. I don't know if the consumers can be as willing to check that box so you can get that lead. And plus those cheap prices, those $2 and $3 clicks that you're getting are highly dependent on lead aggregators being able to monetize that lead by calling it outbound. It's highly dependent on the lead aggregator being able to sell it into other verticals. So that ability to monetize is going to go away for the most part for these lead aggregators. And I think the opportunity to get very, very inexpensive shared data that's legitimate to call is going to be hard. We have another question. How some of these changes taken place? So the FCC just came out. It usually is 6 months from the time. So the FCC just put out the rules. They're going to enter them into the registry in February. Typically, those rules go into effect 6 months from that date, but they just made an announcement that they're going to give everyone 12 months. So we're looking at February of 2025 when these rules will take effect. So we have another question. I've heard the enforcement will take place in 6 months. Is that accurate? No, it's going to be 12 months. If I buy leads through Benepath, will TCPA be an issue for me? No, it will not be an issue for you. That's one of the great things that we do because we do the one already. So we're really prepared for it and we have the same platform. So we're going to be able to connect you on that TCPA page. The consumer's not going to check your name. And so you're going to be able to get a reliable, steady flow of exclusive leads from us. What's interesting is I'm not seeing the same thing. Probably going to need to set up those individuals.
Brad answered that question.
Yeah, upline IMO buying packs of leads from multiple agents underneath them. If you're all in the same organization, right? And I'll pick on U.S. Health Advisors for right now. So if it's U.S. Health Advisors and you're a U.S. Health Advisor agent, I think that yes, the upline will be, you'll be able to display U.S. Health Advisors and it will be able to go to a U.S. Health Advisors agent. But let's say you've got an FMO or IMO and you're Joe's Insurance Solution and your IMO is American Family Plans. No, that is not going to be something you're going to be able to do because you're going to have to be on that TCPA and you're going to have that Journia ID or that trusted form URL. Do we generate life and annuity leads? We do generate life leads. We do not generate annuity leads at this time. It's one of the products we're looking at. Some great questions coming through. Are manual dials exempted? So manual dials are exempted. And here's the fear that's coming from the defense attorneys is that you're still going to get sued. So let's say somebody gets a lead and you get an age lead and you pick up your cell phone and you call with your cell phone. That you're going to be allowed to do as long as you've done a DNC scrub on it. So if there's no DNC, you can absolutely call it, no problem, with your cell phone. You're still going to get sued though. And the plaintiffs' counsels are out there looking at this as a huge opportunity to increase the number of calls, our manual dial. So Scott and Brad, do you guys have anything to add to that?
No, I think that makes sense. It's you're sounds like you're going to spend that money one way or the other, either in a settlement or defense. So if your goal is to minimize your legal costs, then you're going to want that one-to-one consent.
You know, here's a really interesting question that just came through. So if you don't have the one-to-one consent prior to the new law going into effect, so let's say it's February 1st or January 31st of 25, I don't know the answer to that question. My bet is that once that law's effective, yeah, you're going to have to stop dialing them if you don't have that one-to-one consent. You're not going to be able to go back and dial your older leads just because you got them prior to the law being effective. But I'd check with counsel on a question like that. Does E&O usually defend DNC suits? No. No, it would be your general liability that would defend you, and most of those policies have exclusions for breaking the law. We've successfully used our liability as a company because we were able to show the carrier that we did everything by the book, and it was a frivolous lawsuit. But boy, that was a lot of work. I don't know how many people have been sued under TCPA. We have, and we've successfully defended, but it's expensive. I mean, you're going to spend $10,000, $15,000 per case to successfully defend a case. Any other questions for anyone? All right, Scott, do you have any final comments, or Brad?
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting us, Cleland. I appreciate it. Of course, if there's any questions related to Bobberdew or some of this on a more technical level, please don't hesitate to reach out to anybody at Bobberdew.
Great, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. Post, just send them in. You have our contact information, and we'd be glad to have conversations on a one-to-one basis as well to have more engaged conversation. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.